Hey there friends, before I get started I want to do a quick unboxing of Mastering Manga 3. That's right, they have released it early, ahead of schedule. It wasn't supposed to be out until August 29th, but I have seen that it is in stock at Amazon right now, and of course the publisher sent me my complimentary copies. Let's see if I can bust this open, and whoops, gotta cut this all the way through. Come on, Trilly, you've done this before. Oh my goodness, look at it. Mastering Manga 3. Man, it's always exciting to get a new book, I gotta tell you, to see how it turned out after the hours and hours of work put into it. But I know you guys are waiting to see a video. Let's go ahead and do the quick lineup here. Mastering Manga 2, and now Mastering Manga 3. Thank you so much to any of you who have ordered any of these books. I greatly, greatly appreciate your support, but let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get on with the video. Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crowley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. You know, I try on this channel never to repeat myself, but I thought today I'd do something a little different, and that is to go back and revisit an older video that I did way back in 2009. Hang on, I'm going to go ahead and splice in an image of it. Now, some of you may remember that video. It was called How to Draw Manga, Head Shape and Facial Features. And, you know, I'm still proud of that video, but I thought it might be fun to come back in the year 2016. My style has evolved a little since then, and at the very least, I can shoot the video in higher resolution. Back then, you know, it was very grainy, and I think we can certainly do better in that regard. So, people like to know the size that I'm working at. I've put a square here in place to show you that. It's 3.5 inches on all sides. That works out to almost exactly 9 centimeters, and then I've just put these crosshairs right in the middle, splitting it into 4 equal parts. Now, hang on, I'm going to go ahead and start to draw the shape of the head, just the top. So it's mainly the shape of a circle at this stage, and you can see that the line here touches very neatly against this side of the square, over here sort of going a little bit past it. And the reason that I've put the focus of the camera with all this blank space down here is to alert you to the fact that if you want to follow along with this, you will need some blank space down here for drawing the neck and shoulders later on. But for now, I'm going to refocus the camera, get a little closer in on this square, and then I'm going to finish off drawing the shape of the head. So as you can see, we're drawing the head in a 3/4 point of view, which means that you get this kind of challenging contour here right around the area of the cheekbone. And, you know, if you've got this square in place, paying attention to the negative space of this shape right here might help you a little. I always find this very challenging to draw. Another thing you could focus on is the point of the chin. It is not a 90-degree angle. It's quite a bit wider than that. So that's something also that you could pay attention to. Now, I'm going to add one more line going right across between these two, dividing that space neatly in half. Now in a moment, this line is going to show us where to put the nose, but for now I want to get into drawing the shapes of the eyes. And this line right here is going to help us for placing them. The upper lines of the eyelashes really rest very neatly upon that line. So a couple of things to pay attention to here. One is that the lower part of each one of these irises is flattened off, which sort of suggests the presence of the lower eyelid without actually defining it. And the other thing is to notice the amount of space between them. You know, this central line here, if you are paying attention to that as you draw the iris itself, that'll help you to sort of get the distances right for these two. Now it's time to draw the nose, and I think I'll go ahead and do both the nose and the mouth. Now, very often when the head is turned in this 3/4 point of view, the nose is located more or less directly below this corner of the iris. I use that a lot as a sort of a trick for locating the nose. And then one corner of the mouth ends up directly below that. So you have this nice little relationship that helps you in terms of drawing the mouth. Notice that the mouth is considerably closer to this line of the nose than it is to the line of the chin. That can help you. And then, of course, there's also a fairly specific relationship there between the contour of the cheek and the mouth itself. So I think it's time now to place the ear. Now later on I'm going to get into the details of the ear, but for now just the contour is what we're focused on. Notice how the bottom of the earlobe rests right upon that line where the nose is, and then depending on how large you want to make the ear, you could have it, I had it overlap this line right here. You could make it smaller if you want to. In fact, you can do all of this differently if you want to. I'm certainly not proposing that this is the only way to draw a manga face. There are thousands of different ways to draw manga faces. Well, let's go ahead now and put in the lines of the eyebrows. Now, what almost always happens with a three-quarter point of view with the eyebrows is that they shift a little bit over to one side because the forehead is sort of on a different plane from where the eyes are. So pay attention to how this moves over a little to the right, this one also a little over to the right. And of course, if you were drawing in the opposite direction, it would move toward the left. I'm going to refocus the camera, pull back so that we can draw the neck and the shoulders. Now, I've given this character quite a long neck. You certainly could choose to make the neck shorter if you want to, but pay attention to the location of these two vertical lines. One coming over here to the left of the point of the chin generally is where it is located, somewhere over to one side of the chin. And then here, just below the earlobe, I find that happens a lot as well as a locating guideline for that other line of the neck. I'm going to go ahead and draw the rest of the sort of upper area, the shoulders, and maybe the upper arm, and then we're going to be moving on to drawing the hair. So I've chosen to give the character a pose in which she's turning her head quite a bit. We almost see the back, behind the shoulder, this area, more than we see the front. And I just thought it would be interesting to alter the pose a little bit from what I did back in 2009. It's a common pose that I see and quite attractive, and I thought it was, worth teaching in this video. Well, as I said, it's time to draw the basic guidelines of the hair. I'm not going to get too far into that. I want to leave the hairstyle up to you and your own preferences, but let's go ahead and maybe get in the basic contour of the top of the head and maybe some sort of a ponytail back here. Now, different artists have different approaches to drawing the hair, but generally speaking, manga characters have hair that has a fair amount of body to it, so that if you've drawn the contour of the scalp, then the contour of the hair should be some considerable distance away from that. And then over here, just for this ponytail, I basically did that because I had done it back in 2009, and it seemed the right thing to do. I'm going to go ahead and draw just a few more strands of hair up here, sort of bangs going across the front, and then we'll knock it off with all the time lapse, and we're going to get into some real-time drawing. Alright, well I think that gives us the basics of a hairstyle here. As I said, I don't want this video to be about drawing one particular hairstyle. It really is more about the placement of the facial features and the details, which we're about to get into. And indeed, we are going to tell Old Man Time-Lapse to take a lunch break. I'll be down at the delicatessen having a pastrami sandwich if you need me. It almost sounded like the old grandfather from The Simpsons. There, didn't it? I don't know. Is that copyright infringement? I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm going to refocus the camera so that we can get into the details of the face. Okay, so you can see I decided to erase away the guidelines, including the guideline of the scalp, which may make some people wonder, why did you draw the scalp to begin with? Well, if you have a line for the scalp in place, you at least have the option of doing a variety of different hairstyles. I didn't want to lock anyone into the particular one that I had chosen, but here's one that I'm going to erase in real time, and it's this line right here along the edge of the jaw. And you don't have to erase this, but I am choosing to erase it so as to have this line coming up from the chin sort of fade off a bit. And again, it's sort of personal preference, but I certainly do see many manga artists drawing ahead in this three-quarter position, allowing that line to just fade off there. Well, let's go ahead and get into drawing the eyes. This line here, as I said, is the upper limit of the eyelash line, and I want to give the character nice, big, thick eyelashes. So I'm going to go in and darken in below that line, sort of filling in this area as we come down to the iris. I always like to give a little bit of a hook over here at the edge of the eye, suggests the contours of the eye without actually defining it all the way down to the bottom. As I said, this lower part of the iris really is hinting at the presence of a lower eyelash without actually defining it very much. And I suppose before, well, you know what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do this entire eye all in real time, and then since it would be repeated over here, I'll do that whole other part of it in time-lapse. Does that mean that I have called Old Man Time-Lapse back from the deli? Possibly. With a half-eaten sandwich in hand. Anyway, I'm drawing a highlight here. This establishes that the light source is over here. The primary light source is over on the right-hand side. I have to, of course, be careful to remember that and not mess up when I add shading later on. I speak from experience. I have done that before in some of these videos, I'm pretty sure. Now I'm drawing the pupil, making it fairly large. Lots of different ways. I've noticed, and maybe I'll do a video on this, I've noticed some artists do a tiny little pupil right in the middle, which has a sort of interesting, spooky look to it, and kind of tricky to pull off. Maybe more often I see this large, dilated-looking pupil. I'm going to add a few lines here of the suggesting eyelashes. And later on I'm going to be darkening in this whole area, but I suppose I can give a little preview of that shading technique that I'm going to do here. I'll go in and do the entire thing using sort of circular motions, keeping my pencil low to the page. This would be like shading mode for me. I'm not going for precision. I'm trying to get an evenness of tone. And then, of course, the pupil normally is darker than the rest of the iris, so I'm going to go ahead and darken that in a bit, although I've noticed an interesting technique, and I think I'm going to use it in this video, whereby the pupil is not jet black, just a little darker, as if light is somehow getting into the pupil and bouncing off of the interior of the brain. Not exactly how that works, but it makes for an attractive effect. And generally speaking, the upper region of the iris is darker, more deeply shaded, and then it lightens as it goes down towards the bottom of the iris. And as I said, I feel like it would be very repetitious to do the rest of the other eye also in real time, so I am going to go ahead and shoot through that in time-lapse right now. So yeah, more or less a repeat of what I did here, although note that because of the location of the irises, you're not having this line extend across here the way this one does. Really, she's sort of turning away from us but looking back, and so both of the irises have shifted over to one side of the eye. Now, a very simple thing that you can do that is surprisingly effective in terms of enhancing the look of the drawing is to add a line for the fold of the upper eyelid, and I have seen a preference for having it located, this line located over here towards the bridge of the nose. The bridge of the nose, which you cannot see because it has not been drawn, but anyway, you get the idea. I very often see that this line does not extend all the way across, but for whatever reason the artists find it appealing to just sort of draw part of it. In any case, a nice thing about this drawing style is that you don't have to get into any further details of the nose and the mouth. They basically remain the way they are. But, as I said, the ear can certainly get considerably more detail. And I have done videos, one quite recently, showing the proper anatomy of the ear. I thought just for fun I would show that manga artists can be a bit playful with the anatomy of the ear, and they might make a line like this and then have another line come down and hook into it, but then come all the way down to as if it's delineating the earlobe, the lower section. I am becoming very inarticulate as I talk about it, but this line down here is a little bit odd in terms of real ear anatomy, but it works, and indeed I've seen some artists really take liberties and do very unusual things in terms of rendering the ear, because this is manga, this is not photorealism. And that maybe takes care of that. Now, I said I didn't want this to be all about drawing the hairstyle, but I guess I can say a few things. Let me shift the focus of the camera so that we can see all of the hair. So I guess my goal here is going to be to offer a lot of general advice about drawing hair rather than to talk too much about this one particular hairstyle that I settled on for this drawing. I suppose the primary thing that I notice in terms of manga illustrations is that the hair is drawn with loose, sweeping lines very often, and I find that the only way to achieve that is by way of quick strokes of the pencil. Notice how quickly I am making these lines. I'm not, very slowly dragging my pencil across the page. I'm trying to sort of dash them in, which of course results in a lack of precision, right, when you put something in so quickly. But it's sort of a trade-off that you're making here. By making the lines fast, you get a certain elegance to them, a smoothness, because it's so fast that it's not picking up the vibrations of the wrist or the unsteadiness of your hand. And there is a sort of a funny thing there in terms of the speed creates elegance, whereas slowness, which you might expect to result in precision, can sometimes reveal all these tremors in the line because you're moving your pen or pencil so slowly. So again, I don't know if that makes any sense. It doesn't make much sense to me, and I'm the guy who said it. But anyway, that's sort of a general principle of drawing hair. The other thing is to sort of not be putting these lines in here randomly, to have some plan of the structure. For example, these bangs, there's a certain structure to them in terms of starting curving over to the left here. We reach a sort of a midway point where the line becomes more or less straight, I'd say right here, and then it begins to curve in the opposite direction. That it reveals that I had a plan for the structure, Now over here on the other side of her head, there is also a structure, but this structure is more about the fact that the hair is being pulled up into a ponytail, and so I imagine if the ribbon is coming around here to hold that hair in place, maybe a midline right here begins to suggest the hair being pulled up into that zone where the ribbon is. The ribbon zone. Sounds like the name of my next sci-fi movie, Ribbon Zone, starring Old Man Time-Lapse. But yes, you can see there that there's a plan. I'm not just putting these lines in here randomly. There's a sense of structure, each line symbolizing, maybe not an individual hair, but more a group of hairs that's moving in a similar direction. And one last thing I can say is that I notice in all manner of manga hairstyles that there's the sort of fundamental area of the hair structure, and then once you've got that in place, then it seems to me very often there is the preference for getting in some stray hairs here and there. I'm gonna sort of hold off on drawing the ribbon. I'm not going to make this a video about drawing the ribbon, sadly. Then I'll have to, but that could be a good topic for another video. How to draw ribbons. But in any case, I was going to get to the point of how I very often see sort of stray hairs, which are very important for adding elegance and beauty to the hairstyle. So you see me putting one that's curving off in another direction. Mark, for a guy who said this video wasn't going to be about hairstyle, you sure are devoting an awful lot of time to it. Well, the one thing it definitely won't be about is shading. Sorry, guys. Because we're just going to probably run out of time by that point. But I do believe the most important thing is knowing where to put the lines. and that's why I'm devoting so much time to that. How about some more stray hairs over here? How about that? How do you feel about stray hairs over here? I often see hairs over on the other side of the cheek, sort of finishes things off, adds a sense of three-dimensionality as you imagine the extra hair that's over there. How about one more stray? One more stray. I'll just start calling them strays. I'll add a stray over here. Maybe that's enough for now, although I reserve the right to add more stray hairs later on. But for now, I'm going to go all in time-lapse and add the indication of the ribbon and probably also the upper area of her clothing. Sorry for those of you who want everything to be real-time. I am bound to disappoint you eventually, and the disappointment begins right now. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the ribbon and the top of her clothing. All right, well, I've got all the line work done, and now it's time to take my trusty black Prismacolor and darken in all the lines. It's a little bit like inking in my world, except I'm using a black-colored pencil instead of ink. But one thing I'm going to do this time that's very different from what I did back in 2009 is I am not going to have this piece of paper taped down to the desk, which it has been up until now. I am going to be able to move it around as I try to use the natural pivot point of my wrist to get these lines nice and smooth and natural. So in that way, it's a little more honest than the video, I suppose, back in 2009, because most artists are sort of spinning the page to get that optimal movement of the wrist. So sorry if that throws you off a little bit. You're going to see this image shoot around in time-lapse. Hey, what do you know? Old man time-lapse, back from the delicatessen. Oh, man, they really do the pastrami sandwich good over there. And oh boy, it's time for me now to get on to doing all the final line work with the black Prismacolor. All right, so I've got all the line work done, and you probably noticed that I did most of that spinning of the paper during the time that I was working on the hair, and I do think that that is the time when it is most important to get the natural pivot point of your wrist working in your favor, because, as I said, I'm drawing those lines quite quickly. I want them to look elegant. And if I'm going like this, using the pivot of my wrist, I'm much more likely. If I'm trying to go like this, almost impossible to get an elegant, smooth line. So I'm afraid I am going to have to finish almost all of this final toning work in time-lapse, but I thought I'd take just a moment to do just a little bit of it real-time here in this area of the eye, just showing you my three-step approach, I suppose, of starting with the number 2 pencil. This is a Dixon Ticonderoga. Honestly, any normal writing or drawing pencil that you are comfortable with is just as good as this one, I'm sure. So don't feel like you have to run out and buy any of the materials that I'm using. In any case, I go in with this pencil for the basic guidelines, then I come in with either ink or a black colored pencil, the black Prismacolor, for doing the line work, and then I come back again and add a little bit of final toning, and you can see that I'm sort of taking my time here, building it up, trying to get a nice variety of contrast, I suppose, within the area of the iris. I would say in manga, the eyes are kind of paramount. You certainly, won't be blamed for spending extra time on making the eyes as beautiful as possible. And as I said, kind of minimizing the amount of attention paid to the nose. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid we're going to have to lean on old man time-lapse. One last time, I'm going to finish all of the shading, and then we'll be back with a few final words. Alright, well that just about wraps up my revisit to the video of 2009, and just for fun I thought I would bring out the original illustration from way back when, compare it. She looks a lot younger, doesn't she? Maybe that's all I've done today. This is how old she was in 2009. This is how old she is in 2016. In any case, I'm sure you all would agree that this video cannot possibly be finished without blushies. So let's go ahead and add them now. Interestingly, there were no blushies in the 2009 version. I'm tempted to go back and add them, but no. For historical accuracy, we will leave that illustration as it is. But for now, hang on, I'm going to go ahead and grab my books so that I can thank all of the people who have helped me out by ordering them. We've got Brody's Ghost, the collected edition. We've got the Realism Challenge, my book on hyper-realism. The Drawing Lesson, my graphic novel that teaches you how to draw. And finally, Mastering Manga 3, my very latest book. So excited about this, and special thanks to any of you who order this book or find it at your local bookstore. Very, very grateful for your support. But let me go ahead and lay this pencil down. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I'll be back with another one real soon.